I think win or lose the Super Bowl, this has already been the most impressive year of Patrick Mahomes' career. I don't think the Super Bowl result matters. Because the fact that he was able to get this Chiefs team through the AFC and to the Super Bowl, I think it is the most amazing accomplishment of his career. He's had better statistical seasons. He's had better players. He's won already 2 rings. Even if he falls short, I don't think any other of the 5 years previous surpassed what he's been able to accomplish this year. I mean, for the first time in his career, this Chiefs team has real warts. This was, I think, easily the worst team he's had in Kansas City in the 6 years he's been the starter. Receivers have had major issues with drops. Offensive line has had problems. Jawan Taylor, I mean, how many false starts, how many holding penalties, how many costly touchdown wiping off the board flags did he incur this season? Ask Chiefs fans, they'll tell you a lot. He was a problem. Receivers were a problem. Travis Kelce himself regressed in the regular season. That all led to what was statistically the worst year of Patrick Mahomes' career for a full season. Oh, yeah, by the way, add on top of the fact that Mahomes had the toughest path to the Super Bowl he's had in his career. Didn't matter. All of those negatives, all of those traps that should have ensnared around his ankles, prevented him from marching forward, stopped the Chiefs from going to their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years, and instead giving someone else a chance to, get to the promised land. Give someone else a chance to chase the Lombardi Trophy. All of that did not matter. Was able to fight through it all, fight through the adversity. So even though statistically it wasn't like the 2018 MVP year where he had 50 touchdowns, or even last year winning MVP, winning the Super Bowl, the fact he was able to accomplish what he did with real concerns on offense, I don't know a more impressive season Mahomes has had outside of this one. There is none. It's unfair. It's crazy. It's honestly scary. The fact that we're sitting here talking about what he was able to accomplish with this poor of a roster for Kansas City compared to their standards, yet still the mission has been the same. I laugh, but it feels almost unfair. And like we talked about before in the show, when it comes to coaching matters, I think a good coach with a bad roster will go further than a really good quarterback with a bad roster. This should have been a roster that took Patrick Mahomes down. It did statistically. Most interceptions of his career, fewest touchdowns, fewest passing yards in a full season of his career. It took him down statistically, but in the end, it did not take him down where it matters the most on the scoreboard. And we're talking about a Chiefs offense in the regular season with Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, averaging just 21.8 points per game. 15th in the league. They were the 15th highest scoring offense. Do you know how bad you have to be? How many real concerns you have to have in order for a Patrick Mahomes-led offense to be 15th in the league in terms of average points per game? A lot. Couple that with the fact that this was easily the hardest road Mahomes has had to hoe going to the Super Bowl. Never played a road playoff game before this season in his career. And he went to 2 of the most hostile environments you could have played in Buffalo, who was out for blood. That place not only was rocking, the stars were aligned for the Bills to finally get their redemption, finally get their revenge on the Chiefs for twice eliminating them in Arrowhead. Obviously, the one time, the 13-second fiasco, debacle, heartbreaker. Obviously, at the forefront of a lot of Bills' minds, they wanted blood. They thought they were going to get blood. They should have got blood. Allen was playing a lot better down the stretch going to that playoff game. The run game has now, had life. Didn't matter. First road playoff game, bad receiving core, questionable offensive line, did not matter. Mahomes goes in there and rips the hearts out of the Chiefs, and then a week later goes into the house of the Ravens, who are the best team in the AFC, the most consistent team in the AFC, you could argue, in the NFL, with the MVP of the league, soon to be, as their quarterback on their team. Chiefs had no business facing the number one scoring defense, number 4 scoring offense on the road, had no business going into Baltimore and winning that game. No business. Here we are. Here we are. Chiefs back in the Super Bowl yet again. The prevailing thought was someone has to knock them off. Somebody's got to do it. And this was by far the most vulnerable the Chiefs have been to where that could have happened. And yet, with all the liabilities, all the question marks, not only did they not come back to this point to bite the Chiefs, they actually turned to the strengths. Again, like, you look at how those games were won, it wasn't just Mahomes, which is the scary part too, looking forward with this Chiefs team, is for how bad they were in the regular season and how vulnerable they looked come postseason time. Mahomes was, I'll say, solid in his 3 playoff games. Nothing spectacular. We've seen better from him. But they still won games where all different areas of the team contributing. Go to that Bills game, offensive line, defensive line. They won the game. Fourth quarter, that Chiefs defensive line finally slowed down that Buffalo run, made the Bills one-dimensional. They had no answer. Offensively, when you had to salt the game away, ran the ball right down the Bills' throats. Game over. The trenches that were getting beat up, especially on the defensive side for 3 quarters, come up clutch and win the game for the Chiefs. Last week against the Ravens, guys like L'Jarius Sneed, Deion Bush, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling coming up with the 3 biggest plays of the game. Guys that all have gotten criticized, have all had, some, in the case of at least MVS, some big-time costly drops that lost the Chiefs some games this year. Dropped a big-time pass against the Eagles that lost in the game. Pass interference against the Packers should have been called, wasn't called, but MVS was a liability in that receiver room for a while this year for the Chiefs, and ends up making the biggest catch on 3rd down to steal the game for Kansas City. So even with all these liabilities, they still rise up and were able to get it done. And even with Mahomes not being, extraordinary, even though not reaching the level we've seen him reach before, it didn't matter. They're still in the Super Bowl. So even though this was the worst statistical year of his career for a full season, even though they had the fewest wins they've had in the regular season under Mahomes, and even though going to the postseason, it was the toughest row, where you had not 1 but 2 road playoff games Mahomes and co. had to face for the first time in their career. We are sitting here talking about the Chiefs back in the Super Bowl and looking for their 3rd ring now in 5 years. I am impressed. He won 2 MVPs. His first year as a starter, again, 50 touchdowns, burst right on the scene, won a Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill last year, won it without Tyreek Hill in his first year, without Tyreek on the team. To me, nothing, or I should say, all pale in comparison to what we saw this year. Getting this Chiefs team to the Super Bowl, I think, is the greatest accomplishment so far of Patrick Mahomes' career.